Okay, this is going to be a somewhat more serious broadcast that's not going to have any charts. It's not going to have any intro or exit. It's going to really focus on the topic of one's own mental health in the context of the price of Bitcoin falling precipitously, as well as shares in not just Bitfarms, but the entire publicly traded Bitcoin mining ecosystem, shares in all of these companies really dropping very precipitously over the past number of trading sessions. I am neither a licensed therapist nor am I a clinician of any kind. However, I have had the privilege of doing a lot of work with people who find themselves in very, very challenging circumstances, life circumstances, not having a home, living out of a car, having food insecurity, having a myriad of different traumas that they are attempting to navigate. And I would like to share a couple of thoughts that may be very practically useful to you right now, particularly if you find yourself significantly underwater with maybe when you bought some Bitcoin directly, or perhaps you bought one of the Bitcoin ETFs, or perhaps you invested in shares of Bitfarms or CleanSpark or Mara or Riot or any of the other publicly traded Bitcoin mining companies. The first thing is you're not alone. Okay, there's a lot of people who have found themselves, myself included, who have found themselves really, really significantly underwater when it comes to a particular trade or a particular investment. Okay? It's crucial that if you're able to, you get a pad of paper or a notebook or even just a sheet of paper that you would use to print something on your printer. And I'm specifically recommending you do this by hand. Even if your handwriting's terrible, get away from your cell phone, get away from your computer. Spend some time just writing down how you're feeling as it relates to the situation that you're facing. I've found that it's very useful to not ponder too much in my own mind, but to rather get these things out in writing. So I'd encourage you to do that. You may want to consider writing down things like, why is it that you feel the way you feel right now? What is it specifically about the trade that you currently have or the position that you have that's really making you uncomfortable? If we were to be doing this exercise together and I'm writing something down, I might write something to the effect of, hey, I'm worried that the price of Bitcoin is really going down at a time when I keep hearing it should be going up. I'd perhaps write down something like, hey, I'm kind of concerned that Bitfarms or CleanSpark or Mara, right? Depending on whatever company you happen to own. Hey, I'm kind of concerned that I see the share price going down, and I'm concerned that the share price may never go back up, and maybe I'll never recoup my investment, right? These are examples of things that one can write down. And you're going to write down things that are very deeply personal to you and your situation, and I'd encourage you to do that. This is not something you're going to share with anybody else. You're not going to share it with me. You're not going to share it with anyone that you don't choose to share it with. This is really free for you. So don't censor yourself. Really kind of get it out there. What is it about what's going on with this trade that really bothers you a lot? And yeah, sure, at a superficial level, hey, Bitcoin's down, the stock price is down. But let's go a couple layers deeper. Once you do that, I want you to at least consider, okay, and again, this is not investment advice, but at least consider for the next couple of days not looking so directly at like what's going on in the markets, what's going on with the stock price, okay? That's not because I'm suggesting you stick your head in the sand and just kind of be in denial, but rather give yourself a little bit of distance from what's going on. Now, if you feel as you write down why you're concerned, you're like, hey, wait, if this keeps going down any further, I might be wiped out completely because, again, maybe you have an options trade. Again, I don't know what your trade or position or investment is. But yeah, look, you may have to make a decision about certain things sooner than later. But let's for a moment assume that you do have some time, right? That this isn't something that requires an immediate decision, right? Or any sort of immediate outcome. I'd encourage you, maybe for the rest of this week, step away from social media, right? Bitcoin Twitter, or well, X these days, or, YouTube broadcasts, including mine, right? Not that I've been publishing that many lately, but step away from all of this and just really kind of get your mind oriented more so on what you do have around you that's in your control. Maybe there are a couple different projects which you've been meaning to do, which you haven't really gotten around to doing. Why not prioritize one of those things for the next couple of days? And then when you catch yourself in your mind thinking, oh my gosh, what's Bitcoin doing? Oh my God, like what's Bitfarms? Is the stock below $1? Is Bitcoin down below 79,000? What's going on right now? And there's that temptation to want to pick up your smartphone and like look up the price of Bitcoin, or look up, the price of CleanSpark or Bitfarms or any other company. Try to instead think of something else that you can do in that moment that you have more control over, that you can do to actually improve your life or improve the environment you live in, right? Full transparency here. I'm not really invested insofar as like the publicly traded Bitcoin mining stocks. Stronghold had been my really big like kind of position. I took like practically all my chips off the table when the Bitfarms acquisition of Stronghold was announced. And I have not really in any meaningful way re-entered any sort of position in any company aside from a couple of little trades, which I've talked about before, but that I've since sold out of. So I am not attempting to pretend that I understand exactly what you may be feeling right now. I don't think anybody could ever really relate to exactly how anyone else is feeling at any moment in time. But by writing down what you're feeling, getting it all out on paper, that's step one. Step two, really trying to take a couple steps back, right? Give yourself a little bit of distance from the subject matter. And, you may even be at a point right now where you're like, I don't even want to look at the price of Bitcoin. I don't want to look at the price of CleanSpark, Mara, Bitfarms. I just don't want to, I cannot look. I can't bring myself to look. And if that's where you're at right now, that's okay too, okay? Don't believe for a moment anybody who tells you that Bitcoin is going to zero. That's just such bullshit. It really is. And that brings me to my very final point, which is if you learn nothing else from this experience, okay, if you think that you're maybe a little bit too heavily concentrated in one or two Bitcoin mining companies, or maybe you feel you're a little bit too heavily concentrated in Bitcoin itself, this might be a moment to say, okay, hey, you know what? I'm not going to judge myself. I did what I did with the information that I had at the time, but going forward, I can make a lot of money without necessarily having to put like all my chips on like on one roulette table, spot, so to speak. I'm not actually a gambler, so I don't know the gambling terminology here. Even in the case of Stronghold for me, it really wasn't, when I said I'm all in on Stronghold, yeah, like I'm all in the sense that I'm like doing broadcasts like once a day, practically 7 days a week, really championing the mission and purpose of the business. It was less about, oh my God, I'm going to be completely destitute if this doesn't work out. Although sometimes it kind of felt towards the end there, like, oh my gosh, this will be kind of a big loss, bigger than maybe I'd like to absorb, but whatever. You have to have faith. You have to be prudent. You have to have some modicum of risk management. And I think we're going to get through this. Okay. I really do. I hope this was helpful. Again, I'm not attempting to be prescriptive. I'm just trying to share some things that have worked for me, that have worked for others, and that maybe, just maybe, can work for you. Let me know how you're feeling in the comments. Again, you don't have to share anything at all. But if this is something you're struggling with, maybe I'll even get an actual licensed person to come on the channel, and we'll do a little interview, and we'll talk about these topics in more detail. And they can share some of their thoughts and perspectives as like a licensed clinician as to how you handle these things. Otherwise, hey, this whole broadcast was for entertainment purposes only. Please don't, whatever. You know what I'm trying to say. It's so awkward. I wish I could just have conversations with you without constantly thinking, I don't want to get in trouble with the regulators. I don't want to seem as if I'm like practicing, psychology or therapy through a YouTube broadcast, which I'm obviously not trying to do. I'm just trying to be helpful and constructive and friendly, because I know that there's a lot of concern and a lot of fear and a lot of genuine terror in some cases out there. And so I thought it was appropriate and important to address that. Okay, my friend, hang in there. We'll catch up with each other again very, very soon.